Welcome to Maddie's Monthly Foster Connection, a monthly webcast where we learn about topics of interest to those of us who are interested in starting or expanding foster programs. Our guest today is Devan Amundsen. Devan Amundsen is a certified dog trainer with over 15 years of experience working not just dog owners, but dogs in shelters, assistance dogs, and other working dogs. Devan started as a volunteer training dogs at his local shelter and has since then has been a kennel technician, a dog care coordinator, animal control officer, and shelter manager. For 7 years, he taught courses about dog training, dog behavior, kennel management, and animal sheltering at the Bachelor of Science and Associate of Science levels at the Bergen College of Canine Studies in Sonoma County, California. Devan has also helped modify the Bachelor of Science degree program, designing and instructing an entirely new courses centered around animal sheltering and providing community support. In 2021, Devan launched a pilot program at the university, assigning students to foster dogs from shelters for the semester as part of their studies, and then participating in placing those dogs into adoptive homes. In April of 2022, Devan joined the team at Oakland Animal Services as the dog behavior coordinator. During his time in Oakland, Devan created an online learning library for training volunteers in running in-shelter playgroups and implemented a new process for evaluating and reporting dog-to-dog interactions with a focus on increased transparency. In 2023, Devan founded Animal Welfare United, LLC. Animal Welfare United builds apprenticeship programs and continuing education to encourage more people to enter the animal field. Animal Welfare United then sponsored free group training classes led by Devan's students at the Bergen College. These classes served as the inspiration for Free Dog Trainers, a nonprofit Devan founded in 2024. Devan has spoken at multiple conferences, both virtual and in person, on topics related to dog training and behavior. Welcome, Devan.
Thank you so much. Really, really excited to dive into this. For anybody that isn't aware, we've got a course on Maddie's University on dog body language that is sort of a companion for this webinar here. I want to give kind of an overview of a little bit what's in the course, but also kind of how we can talk about dog body language in a way that is approachable for maybe new fosters, or maybe just using different language that some existing fosters that aren't connecting with current messaging about dog body language and behavior. Maybe changing up the language a little bit can help them reconnect with some of these really important concepts. So the backbone of a lot of what I talk about with dog body language when I'm working with free dog trainers clients, or when I'm working with shelters, or when I'm working with fosters, it goes back to conversations about allowing the dog to opt in, and really importantly, to opt out of interactions with people. So that's kind of the framework that I want to use to talk about body language today. We're going to go into 3 categories of kind of like what the dog is saying. We're going to put it into sort of conversational, through a conversational sort of lens here. So our first category of body language is the dog saying, "I'm into you." So what does that look like? We've got kind of 3 little subcategories within this. Let's party, let's relax, and let's do whatever. I chose the let's as the recurring theme within this category because this is the dog opting in and saying, I want to collaborate with the human on this, right? I want to work together to accomplish some sort of goal here. So in the let's party example, we've got a dog who is play bowing, their ears are perked up, he's got wide eyes, his mouth is open, his tongue's way out, and his tail is wagging probably high and fast and loose, or kind of, moderately quick wagging tail. Dog probably wants to play. Dog wants to party. Let's do something. In this moment, if I come in here and say, well, no, you have to do this, right? No, settle down, stop what you're doing. That dog, we're no longer in a collaborative conversation. We're in sort of an argument there, right? I'm at odds with that dog. That dog's saying, hey, I want to do something with you. And I'm like, well, no, you have to do this. We can have rules. We can have rules and guidelines for how we interact. We can tell the dog, hey, okay, sit for a second, and then ready, set, go, let's go play. But I have to acknowledge, and I have to get my fosters, and I have to get my team to acknowledge that when the dog is asking for this, I need to find something to do with them, not something to do at them. And I don't know, not something that is totally contrary to what the dog is asking for right now, just to hang out, which is to party, do something exciting. The let's relax and let's do whatever, these two kind of categories here. The let's relax is like, hey, I'm into hanging out with you, but I don't necessarily want to go party right now. I'm not really up for very much. I'd like to just kind of hang out here. So those body language cues or signals might be that the dog's ears are relaxed, eyes are soft, the mouth might be closed, but it's not like tightly closed. Dog's, overall movement is sort of relaxed. And then we've got the dog who's kind of up for anything, up for whatever you want to do. So let's dive in a little bit to what this means. I don't have a ton of, I realized in like putting together this presentation, I don't have a ton of pictures of like dog body language because I'm usually too busy interacting with the dog to get pictures, especially when I'm in the shelter. I'm like, going through so many things at the same time that I don't have time to get pictures. But this category here of I'm into you, we want to base it on mutual understanding. So that requires the person, I want to put a lot of onus on the person's conversation. The person needs to start looking at the situation and ask, what does this dog want right now? What is this dog asking for? What's this dog's body language asking for right now? So the two dogs in these pictures, this guy, Snoopy, was threatening to bite some volunteers and staff at the shelter. It wasn't that he didn't like being touched. It was that people kept trying to touch him, and you can see his skin here. You can see how hot and red and pink that is. His skin hurt. And you can see it on his feet too. His skin hurt a little bit. It's not that he didn't want attention. It's not that he didn't want affection, but he needed somebody to just slow down a little bit, invite him into that, say, hey, what are you looking for right now? He's like, I want attention, but I'm figuring out where that feels good, right? So looking at his body language here in this picture, Snoopy's body language here, we've got kind of the softish eyes. We've got his ears sort of relaxed. His tail is low, but it's more like hanging low. It's not tucked underneath him. So these are the things that we want to be pointing out to our fosters. As we're onboarding fosters or as we're introducing a dog to a foster, I might point out some of these things. Like, what do you think about his body language? What do you think that he's trying to tell you right now? Right? I want to engage in a back and forth conversation with the foster as well. So what do you think his body language is telling you right now? The person's like, I guess I'm not sure. I guess I wasn't even looking for that. Okay, great. Here's what might be going on here. For this dog here, she is, right, we've got kind of wide eyes looking away from me. She's like jumping up on my lap and she's doing the like sort of thing with me. So I'm engaging in the same thing with her. I'm meeting her where she's at and sort of engaging in a more cooperative game here versus me trying to tell her to stop, slow down. So we want to come from a place of mutual understanding. And when we're talking to fosters, we want to be pointing out some of these things. But I think my larger recommendation there is like, get curious first, then start kind of offering information. So let your foster ask the question before you start just giving out that information too quickly. So really importantly here, actually in both of these situations, these opt-out opportunities, constantly talking about this with dog owners and with people interacting with maybe behavior case dogs. We're talking about, are we providing the dog an opportunity to say, no, thank you, I don't think I want this right now? And how are we doing that? Are we just sort of stopping petting and staring at the dog? Are we tossing a treat away from us and seeing if the dog comes back to us? Are we kind of pointing out other things in the environment for the dog to do? Where are these opportunities for the dog to say, no, I don't think I actually wanted this? Because plenty of dogs, like Snoopy here, he might get into this situation and I start petting him and then he realizes, uh-oh, I'm like really close and I'm in your lap. It's going to take quite a bit to get away from you. I don't know if I'm comfortable with this. So it's up to me to allow him, to encourage him to take the opportunities to disengage for a second and to walk away. When we're talking about encouraging this I'm into you conversation, we want to invite the dog to participate, not command the dog to participate. This is really, really important for me. I love the way, if anybody's not familiar with Dr. Amy Cook, I love the way that she talks about inviting a dog to play. And I love her rule of like when I'm engaging in physical play with a dog, I want the dog to be the first one to make physical contact with me. And I do this with my own dog. I do this with dogs in the shelter quite often. I want that dog to be the first one to actually make physical contact with me. And if you're not quite sure how to do this, you got to start playing with some dogs, which is why most of us got into this, right? We got into this because we want to play with dogs, we want to hang out with dogs. So if you're not quite sure how to do that, check out Dr. Amy Cook. But also get out there, get hands on dogs or hands off of dogs and get that body language and see what you can do to get that dog to want to opt into that interaction with you. Most of the time, it's allowing them to opt out and inviting them versus commanding them. My favorite training, the best training, when I'm looking at a dog owner working with their dog or when I'm working with a dog in the shelter, I want it to look like we're just playing. Best case scenario, that's what my training looks like, is that we're playing a game. We're playing, do you want to come over here? Do you want to do this? What's that? What's over here? Do you sit? And then you go, good job, and down and stay, right? Like all of that is fun. That's a game. We're playing. We're opting into that. And I'm turning this conversation that could be very rigid, like, no, I need the dog to sit before doorways. Okay, I need the dog to sit before we go into the street, and that makes us walk quicker, right? Great training looks like play. So at this stage too, really important to point out that in this kind of category, and this is totally a constructed category, right, this is just like conversationally how we're talking about this sort of category of body language. There's not like an objective sort of dog is saying I'm into you. I'm not using like as a scientific sort of measurement here. But within this category of this dog opting into interactions with me, and we've got that loose body language that says, I think that I want to play with you, or that sort of relaxed body language that says I'm comfortable. In this category, learning, teaching the dog new behaviors, teaching the dog about the world, changing associations, all of that learning for me is so much more low risk than in other situations. There's a low risk of unintended learning happening, which is really, really important. So if I've got a dog who is kind of falling into the next category of I'm not sure about the situation, the dog's kind of evaluating and assessing, do I like this? Do I not? How much that association is positive? How much that association is negative? When we're here, when we've got a dog who is opting in, a dog that is, demonstrating this loose, relaxed, wiggly body language, they're probably learning that things around them are interesting at the very least, if not fun. So at this stage, if we're talking about like introducing training to a foster, or introducing asking the foster to do some sort of training, the groundwork that I want to lay is, can I get the dog reliably into this sort of category of body language, that more relaxed body language? I also do have a fairly short session today, and I'm hoping to take questions at the end. So if you've got questions, like Kelly said, drop it into the Q&A. I want to save plenty of time for that. Next category of sort of behaviors here. This is, what are we doing? What are you doing? What is going on? The dog is kind of unsure about what's going on here. I use this what are or what is, right? What are we doing? What are you doing? What is going on? I'm starting to ask questions. I have a dog. Dog's starting to ask some questions like, hey, what is this? It's not so much like, hey, I'm ready for this. It's like, what? So what are we doing? What are you and I doing? What are you doing? I'm not sure what you're doing over there, but I don't know that I want to be involved. And what is going on? There is so much happening around me. I can't quite figure out what is going on around me. It's kind of what each of those is getting at here. So a lot of people really, really love talking about management of aggressive behavior. I teach management of aggressive behavior hands-on workshops occasionally. A lot of people really want to talk about, what do we do when the dog starts trying to bite me? And for me, we have missed so many things leading up to that point, and we can invest a whole bunch of time in learning the mechanics of how to de-escalate conflict in the moment. We'll talk about it very briefly. We can invest a lot of time in that training. Where we should be investing a vast majority of our time is prevention, is not getting to the point where you've got this dog that is so overwhelmed that they are trying to grab onto clothes, or they are trying to, maybe not trying to, but they are kind of approaching a point where they might do some damage to somebody. So prevention is incredibly important. And as you're building training for your fosters and as you're building training for really anybody, my priority is always going to be on prevention over what to do in those moments, because the more prepared they feel like to handle that, you know, oh, okay, I feel totally confident with what I'm going to do when the dog starts trying to attack everything around them, the more okay we're sort of making it to get to that point. And it's not okay to get to that point. That means that we've missed a whole bunch of warning signs up to that point. Likely means that we've missed a bunch of warning signs up to that point. And it means that next time we're going to need to set up that whole situation very differently so we don't escalate to that point. So when we start to see this category of behavior here, this I'm not quite sure what's going on, we want to start focusing on how do I prevent this moving forward? How can I start to decrease the frequency of this coming up? So what that requires to decrease that frequency is situational awareness. Know what's going on around you, right? Making sure that the foster takes a second to consider what's happening outside as I'm doing this training session with the dog, or as I'm getting the dog in my car, or whatever it is, right? Know what's happening around you and know what other influences could be impacting the dog's current behavior. That also requires kind of constant surveilling of what's going on around me. So paying attention to, are there obstacles as I'm taking the dog for a walk? Are there obstacles that are going to trip me up? Are there blind corners where there could be a dog coming out from dog coming out unexpectedly? If I'm taking a dog that I'm working on, the dog barking, lunging, growling at other dogs on leash, making sure that we're not doing that with headphones in so that I can hear if there is a dog coming or hear somebody yelling, loose dog, loose dog. So making sure we prioritize that training for our fosters and saying, hey, what does situational awareness look like for you? What are you looking for out of a walk with your dog? Are you looking for like a training walk where we're going out and doing something? Or are you more looking to just kind of like take some time and enjoy the breeze, enjoy the like looking around at my neighborhood? And if you're looking for that, maybe don't take the dog. Maybe let's find some alternative forms of exercise and enrichment that might be better suited for both the foster and for the dog. And also, let's all be super honest about our weaknesses and know our weaknesses. At the moment, I've got my knees are having a rough time for whatever reason. So I'm doing a lot less work with shy dogs that might need me to crouch down really low for them to feel more comfortable with me, because I can't quickly get up from that position at the moment. So I'm going to limit what I'm doing there, or I'm going to change up what I'm doing. So like I have a chair so that it's a little bit faster for me to stand up if I do need to get low with the dog. So being honest about those and being willing to be vulnerable with yourself and potentially be vulnerable with other people, like on a webinar where there's however many people here, is really important to making sure that it's okay for the foster to also say, hey, you know what? I've got a shoulder thing right now. And normally I know that I love to take the huge dogs, but with my shoulder thing right now, I just don't think that it's realistic. Totally fair. I appreciate you knowing going into it so that we don't get into the situation. Because the reality is that even with all the training in the world, it does not change the size of this dog. It does not change the strength of this dog. That potential is still there, and I need the person to be able to safely navigate the situation. So as we start going into this category of a dog that is kind of unsure, and as we look at like how do we de-escalate the situations, I just want to go into it with the foundation here that prevention is what we should be mostly talking about. We shouldn't be talking so much about what to do in that moment, although we will talk a little bit about it. So at this stage, the dog is asking a question. What are we doing? What are you doing? What's going on here? The dog's asking that question. My first response is usually to ask a question back. But that question back might be, do you need something at the moment? Where do you want to go? What's going on right now? How are you feeling? How are you feeling is a big one that I ask a lot. Maybe not out loud, but I'm looking at this dog. So like this dog here, this dog jumping, his ears are perked up, eyes are really wide, maybe barking. This dog's getting really worked up. He's like, what's going on here? What's the dog feeling? He might be feeling frustrated. Okay, what's he frustrated with? Does he want to go somewhere? Does he want to do something? Does he want something and he can't quite figure out how to get it? Because that's what frustration is. I want this and I can't have it. Okay, how can I provide him an alternative there? Hey, what can I get you right now? So I'm asking questions. If I get out of this human instinct to like, okay, what are we doing right now? Well, you're sitting. I was like, well, no, I'm not sitting. I'm starting to panic, right? Acknowledge what that dog is feeling in that moment and ask that question and encourage your fosters to ask those questions as well. I do a lot of like most of my consults with clients, especially remote consults. It's a lot of just asking questions of the person like, well, what do you think about that behavior? What do you think the dog's feeling in that situation? What does it feel like to you in that moment? Like, I know that it like looks like aggression, but maybe it's fear. Okay, I agree. It might be fear. If it's fear, what do we want to do here? Well, I guess we want to change the dog's mind about the situation. Like, yeah, absolutely. I've got some videos that are great on counter conditioning and desensitization that I'd love to share with you so that you can start working through that fear with the dog. Right? So ask those questions both of the dog and ask those questions of the foster when we're looking at this category of body language here, of the dog asking questions. In these moments, I want to start de-escalating. So de-escalating for me looks like redirecting the dog's attention. So like, what are we doing? Right? This dog that's jumping, maybe starting to get a little mouthy. The dog's like, what are we doing here? I'm getting frustrated. I'm getting a little bit anxious. I don't know what's going on. Right? We've got sort of probably this dog and this dog. Maybe these categories of body language are happening, kind of alternating back and forth. What's going on around me? I'm a little bit anxious. What are you doing? Why aren't you responding to what's going on around me? I'm frustrated and anxious. So we want to redirect that attention. Hey, there's a lot of focus on me right now. We toss some treats. You find it. Get your nose on the ground. Can we check out what's over there? What does that smell like? What's going on over here? Come on, let's go check this out. Right, we're redirecting attention to something else. We're starting to get out of that like sort of panic. I'm tunnel visioning in on something specific. Hey, what else is going on? Go put your nose on the ground and breathe for a little bit. Take 3 deep breaths. A human recommendation. Suggest some alternatives. So like I was saying, we're redirecting attention and we're suggesting some alternatives. Right now, it seems like the best course of action is to jump up all over me, get me to change the situation. I can't change everything around me. So why don't you go sniff? Why don't you find it? Why don't you do a touch? Why don't you walk next to me and we'll walk kind of quicker? What if you go over here for a second and take a minute off leash or, you know, with a leash hook to a fence or something to just like settle for a minute away from a person? So redirect that attention, suggest alternatives, and all of those alternatives I just suggested are ways that we are getting out of that situation. Because as we escalate here, the risk of this dog learning something I don't want them to learn. So the risk of this dog learning that I am potentially a source of frustration, that this environment is potentially overwhelming, that they have no control over what's happening to them. The more that is happening, the more that dog might be learning that they don't like the environment, they don't like the situation that they're in, they might be forming a negative association with it, and then we have a dog that is afraid of this context moving forward, or increasingly anxious or increasingly frustrated, or just increasingly stressed about the situation. So at this point, I'm not going to sit here and work through a big training protocol. Likely not going to work through a big training protocol. Obviously, if it's in partnership with a qualified behavior consultant, you might, you know, there's always exceptions to any rule. But at this point, we do have to recognize that there is a moderate risk here, at least a moderate risk, of this dog learning something that I don't necessarily want them to learn. So the goal is just to get out. So go find it. The dog starts sniffing. I start looking for where's my exit here. Let's start doing a find it. Let's start tossing treats in that direction over there. So get out of these situations. Your foster's like, what training do I do in that moment? We don't do training in that moment. We get out. We prioritize safety of ourselves and safety of the dog and safety of everybody around us. And we get out. Get us back to, okay, thanks so much for helping me out there. I'm into you. What's next? Right? I'm up for anything. That's where we want to get back to. Okay, so just going back into this de-escalating, because there are going to be these times, because I can't control the whole world, and it's unrealistic of me to say, never have the dog be unsure about what's happening around them, because the world is inherently a little bit unpredictable. So what do I do in these moments? A big one is to move, again, recognizing my own weaknesses, whether that's leash handling or like physical weaknesses, recognizing that I may need to move, get out of there. Is the equipment that I'm using appropriate for that? Do I have the dog on a really loose flat clip, a really loose like wallet collar style with a sort of small leash, and now I've got this this huge dog on a small leash, and I'm trying to get out of there, right? So that goes back to that situational awareness. It goes back into prevention over response. So move, making sure that I'm in an environment where I can move. In situations like this dog, actually during this bath here where I took this picture, during this bath here, this dog was like, oh, I'm starting to get like, I don't know what's happening here and I don't know if I like this. And so he jumped up a little bit and started mouthing or nipping or something there, kind of something in this category of what are we doing? I'm a little bit frustrated, a little bit anxious. Started doing that. And so we just stopped, right? Let him move around. I immediately unclip him. We start walking around a little bit. He moves around, takes some deep breaths. Okay, maybe it's not so bad. We went right back in there, went right back to the bath, no problem. But our first stage of that, de-escalating that whole thing, was to move, not to tell him, hold still. Why hold still? Or I'm like spring loading things. So move. Like I mentioned before, give simple instructions like find it, get it, or go to a location. Those are great ones that are well worth practicing with a foster during pickup, right? Demonstrate what a find it looks like. Demonstrate how to use that with a foster during that pickup. If I know that we might be looking at these, we're likely to look at these behaviors. And honestly, with most dogs I'm taking out the door with, unless I've got like a, I don't know, a geriatric dog that's just recovering from surgery or something in the home, like most reasonably active dogs, I might approach the situation. So show off a find it. Is the dog motivated by play? If so, show us how to use a toy to redirect that attention to the toy, right? Oh, I've got this in my back pocket. What's this? Go find it or get it. Dog goes over there, plays with that toy, just gets that sort of energy, starts to get that energy out, starts to bring us back to, okay, thanks for recognizing where I was. Feeling a little bit better now, right? And that's that dog's point of view. Been doing a lot of work with private clients on teaching the dog to sniff on cue as a way to remind the dog to breathe. I've been doing a lot of work with the human side of the leash as well and reminding people to take some deep breaths. So in those moments when you're like, hey, if you feel like you need to take a deep breath, let's encourage the dog to also take a deep breath. And we're going to do that by telling them to go sniff and put that on cue. We train that with a find it. Just tossing a tree on the ground, saying find it. Dog puts their nose on the ground, starts sniffing around. Real easy one to train. And if possible and safe at this point, if I can loosen up that leash a little bit, instinct tells people to tighten up on that leash because it feels like you're more in control. But in these moments, that can escalate us versus de-escalate us back to that point where the dog's like, I'm into you. So loose leash, encourage them to sniff with a find it, redirect that attention with a toy or something, tell them get it. Or if they have like place training on board, I might send them over to a place or to their kennel or just out, go to the yard, go do something else, right? Away, move around. Okay, our last category here of I can't handle this. This is where I have seen so much focus placed on this category of behaviors, and it makes sense because we have a lot of problems come at this really, really tangible problems of like people getting bit and people getting hurt and the dog suffering as a result of it, my program suffering and the foster suffering, right? Like, not great. So I understand the inclination to want to kind of focus attention on this category. But like I said, at this stage, we have missed some early warning signs, or we are just in a situation that is too overwhelming for this dog. If I've got this dog right here that is like, everything sucks, I can't think about anything, that's that dog that's at the back of the kennel. They're maybe wide-eyed, ears are back, their tail's tucked, they're trembling. They're like, I cannot handle the situation I'm in. Great. My job is to get you out of here. Right? Let's get you out of this situation. You're recognizing that everything around you sucks right now. Let's get you out of here. So we've got that sucks, everything sucks, this sucks, and you suck. So that over there looks a little bit scary. That sucks over there. Everything sucks. I'm overwhelmed. This sucks. There's something right here that is a direct threat to me. And then you suck is like, I am targeting this not just at like an object or not just at like a thing, but like you have done something. It's more falling into like an anger sort of category. Okay, when we're recognizing this, our goal is not to engage in some sort of training. Again, always exceptions to the rule, but generally speaking, I'm not going to be doing training where the dog is looking like this. I'm looking at getting out of that situation and making sure that we do our best to avoid that in the future and look at whether or not it's reasonable to avoid this in the future. So obviously getting out requires that movement. It requires us to redirect that dog's attention. So again, tossing some treats, even if the dog doesn't actually eat the treats, sometimes just the like, what are you doing? Oh, there's food on the ground. Even if it just breaks attention for a second, gets their nose on the ground, find it can be fantastic. Asking somebody to make some sort of distraction, like, hey, can you grab a toy and go throw it real quick? Right. Provide some sort of something else to get the dog's attention, encourage them to be looking at something else as you work on how do we safely get out of this situation. If possible here, I want to provide functional alternatives. And this can be really tricky to navigate in the moment. I don't necessarily expect you to instill this in your foster homes. Again, if your foster is encountering this often enough that we have to like coach them on the next time, let's work on how to prevent this in the future and not how to like work through this moment. But if possible, I do want to provide some functional alternatives. So what does functional alternatives mean? So this dog that's like, I don't like that over there. Ultimately, this body language, this behavior is a lot better than this body language right here. This is like somebody's getting hurt right now. This is like, if we keep going, if we keep approaching, probably not going to have a very good time. So functional alternative here. Hey, you can sit here in posture. You can walk away. So tossing food or some sort of distraction over the dog's head to remind them that there's something over there, or pass the dog. I shouldn't say over the head. Pass the dog away so that the dog retreats away from whatever this thing is they think sucks. So space in that example is a functional alternative. You can growl and you can displace the source of the threat, or you can walk away from the threat. A dog who is like, you know, this sucks. I'm really frustrated right now. I really want this, but I can't have it. And so, and we've reached a point where I can't even like process anything else. Okay, let's have them grab a toy or grab my backup leash or whatever I've got in that moment, get their mouth busy on something else so that they're not grabbing clothes or they're not grabbing the leash that they're walking on. The leash in this, you can barely see it, but the leash in this picture is now a goner because I didn't have a backup on me. I didn't have a backup alternative on me. And the dog was like, well, I got to grab something. And thankfully she didn't grab me. She grabbed the leash, but now that leash is a goner. So at this, oh man, at this point in time, I'm not recommending that, especially a foster home, I'm probably not recommending that they try to teach the dog anything at this stage, because what the dog is probably learning here is that this situation is scarier than they thought, or that this situation is exactly as scary as they thought, or exactly as overwhelming or threatening as they thought it was. So looking at de-escalating before we get into like a training conversation or like a learning conversation, that's going to be most important for me in these cases. But in these cases, we do have to recognize that we are going to encounter them at some point with any dog. This is just a really quick overview from kind of a management of aggressive behavior presentation. So if we're looking at these situations, I want to be as low on this pyramid as possible, obviously. So if we are up here where the dog is like trying to grab and bite, I'm going to minimize injury. I'm going to minimize sort of the damage there. So providing them with that alternative, providing them with a toy, providing them with something else to put in their mouth so that they're grabbing and biting that. I always joke that I like getting bitten on my hands and not like center mass. So if we are biting, I want to keep the dog away from center mass here. But trying to de-escalate, even in these moments of overwhelm, staying safe by de-escalating to a strike would be like a muzzle punch or like a nip, right? So trying to like, are we just at that phase? Because if we keep escalating this, if the dog's like pulling away from me, or the dog is jumping, trying to pull sort of in a different direction from me. If I escalate that and like pull back, well, I'm going to start moving up this pyramid here. And I'm going to get to that like, okay, now we're nipping. And then if I keep escalating that, we're going to go up to a grab or bite. But the important thing about this slide is that the foundation of all of this is my stance. So I do this a lot for students who are working in shelters. I'll be watching them handle a dog. I'll just say, hey, check your feet. Check your feet. Because if your feet are really close together, that's a very unstable surface. That's one point of contact with the ground, and you're probably going to get knocked down. If your feet are way too far apart, or you're like, you're sort of saying like leaning on one leg or something, all of that's just making you a little bit less sturdy. And if this situation starts to escalate to that dog pulling, you're going to go down, and now we're going to keep escalating this to that unsafe level. So part of that prevention is making sure that we are monitoring really simple mechanics like how are you standing when you're handling this dog? Is your stance sturdy? So that's the most important part of this part of the conversation. So in those moments, we are not trying to, we're not necessarily trying to like de-escalate, because most of the time I'm like, we're overwhelmed and we've gone past the point of like working through anything. So I want to focus on like, get out of the situation, get out, give us a little bit of a break, and now let's recover. So focusing on the recovery after these, and I'm talking like after, so the dog has taken some deep breaths, I can safely work with the dog again. Okay, how do we recover here? Encouraging the dog to sniff, encouraging the dog to move, destroy something, give the dog something to shred, give the dog something, a toy to shake. So that toy that you brought out, that you offered the dog as an alternative, let them destroy it, let them shred it, give them that time to like just sort of get this out, get back to that like, okay, I'm a little bit unsure. Great. I'll back up a little bit, and can we play a little bit? Right, we're getting back to that like, okay, I'm into you, I feel safe. Sleep and time, obviously, giving that dog plenty of time before we go back into some sort of training mode, or before we go back into like, okay, how do we set up the situation differently so hopefully we don't have that same response in the dog. Hopefully we get to like approaching, I'm not sure, but not even quite there. Giving it plenty of time, letting the dog sleep it off, giving, potentially a longer than you think for that dog to recover. All of these dogs have nothing to do with this, because I don't have any pictures of dogs panicking, because my goal is always not to get to that point. Right? Again, going back to, I don't have a ton of videos of me de-escalating like a dog jumping all over me and grabbing my, grabbing my leash and grabbing my shirt and everything. I don't have a ton of videos of me doing that, because I view my job as a responsible dog handler as prevention, as not getting to that point. And sometimes that means going up to a kennel and saying, hey, I'm not going to take this dog out today because I'm not prepared, and this dog is telling me that this is not going to be a positive situation for either one of us. So I'm going to give the dog some time. Maybe I'm tossing treats in the meantime. I'm passing by a couple times, offering some silly body language, trying to form that positive association. I'm not saying we give up, but I am saying, sorry if you can hear birds screaming. It's now distracting me because I've got conures that are screaming about nothing. Where was I? Giving that dog that is telling you, I don't know how this interaction is going to go, and I'm feeling pretty overwhelmed right now. Getting them out of that kennel and working with them in that moment is probably not as productive as just giving them a little while to settle in, relax, form a positive association with me, learn that I am safe, learn that I am predictable, learn that the dog, I know that this is probably not everybody's comfortable hearing this, but telling the dog that you do have some sort of control over my behavior. The dog has some sort of control over my behavior, and that's fine, right? The dog can tell me, hey, I need space, please back up. That's fair. The dog can posture a little bit and go, oh, I don't know. Yeah, totally. Thanks for letting me know. I appreciate you not escalating this. How does the dog ask for movement? How does the dog tell you that they are getting a little bit anxious? They're getting frustrated. They're getting overwhelmed. How does the dog tell you that they need something in that moment? Are we recognizing those opportunities for the dog to tell me and de-escalating by moving, getting out of that? Recognizing those little I'm not sures before we get to full overwhelm. Incredibly important prevention over that response there. So really excited. I see some Q&As popping up, so I'm really excited to dive into some questions about this, because I know that body language is a huge topic with so much to cover, and there's so much subtlety and nuance to it. So I don't expect to be able to go over that in a single 45-minute presentation, but I'm always happy to talk after presentations as well.
Thank you so much, Devan. That was awesome. I feel like a lot of the like if a foster is new, sometimes they'll see a dog acting, in a way that's like, please leave me alone. And it, and it can feel like I have to make them feel comfortable. And that is not the way it works. And
Yeah.
I really appreciate your take on it. I mean, the way you explain it and everything. So
Thank you. I know, apologies for, I'm always a little bit like excited to talk about these kind of things so I can get really amped up about it. And then it doesn't help that, got birds occasionally screaming at home.
you can hardly hear them.
Okay, good. Good.
Roxanne is wondering, do you have any basic handouts that they could provide to foster homes?
Yeah, so in the Maddie's University course on dog body language, or the fundamentals of dog communication, I think it's the name of the course, those graphics, the pictures of the dogs, that's available as a single page document that you're welcome to print out and share with fosters. That's a great start. And then also I hand out Lily Chin's drawings all the time. Lily Chin, great printouts available on her website. And then usually my other go-to is low stress handling, Dr. Sophia Yin's resources. There's usually something there. And then obviously Maddie's Pet Forum is full of all kinds of stuff. So those are kind of my top three. Lily Chin, the Maddie's University course on dog communication, fundamentals of dog communication. And then if you can't find it there, Maddie's Pet Forum.
Awesome. Julie Lonnie is asking, how do you manage high arousal way past the threshold, which could be fear, frustration, and stress, and no longer treats or toy motivated?
Yeah. When we're in that, right, we're in that overwhelm, we're in that I can't handle this, I've got to set up my whole environment differently. And that's really tough. I recognize that's really tough in a lot of situations. It could be, the dog's in the kennel and they're completely overwhelmed, and I like have to get them out of the kennel. I've had dogs where we put the crate in the kennel, and then when the dog got in the crate, we closed the crate door so that we could safely transport the dog outside. I've had dogs where I have taken them out on a catch pole so we can get them to somewhere safer, a bigger space, and then let them off so that I can evaluate them in a different environment. But for those dogs that are completely overwhelmed, my first priority is getting out of that physical environment in any way that is safe and reasonable. And that safe and reasonable, unfortunately, is going to have to be defined by your organization and what resources you have available to you. For those high arousal dogs, many of them do fantastic out in foster.
Awesome. All right. Do you pair volunteers with dogs based on skill? And do you assign 1 or 2 dogs to each volunteer to be their buddy to help dog social skills to find and to find an opportunity? I'm not sure I'm reading that right.
No worries. I think do always want to pair our volunteers and our fosters with a dog that is at an appropriate sort of I don't want to say difficulty level, but like requires skills that this person has. So going back to identifying somebody's strengths and weaknesses, if you want to operationalize that in like a tiered system, like a lot of shelters do green, yellow, blue, or some other leveled sort of system. For me, defining those is all about defining what my strengths and weaknesses are and looking at, does this dog's need fall into this category of somebody's potential weaknesses, or does it fall into their strengths? So looking at matching in that way and not saying, well, this is a jumpy mouthy dog, so they have to go with a higher level volunteer. Yes, but also maybe they'd be fine with this person that just physically can handle this situation safely. They're learning these skills. It's obviously also on always on a case-by-case sort of basis here, but yes, always want to advocate for selecting appropriate dogs for appropriate people. And my piece is making sure that we're doing that based on that person's strengths and weaknesses.
Becca is asking, how do you get everyone on the same page? Where do you insert this kind of information and training without overwhelming a new foster that you're onboarding? Do you do it right away as they're signing up to foster or once they have the dog?
Yeah, Big advocate for as low barrier as possible. Fosters, especially for big dogs, can be tough enough, especially when we're starting a foster program, that I don't need to create additional barriers to get to that point. And if that person is showing up willing to do this, I want to make it happen. As far as not overwhelming them with information, the thing that I found to be most successful, even with students who are like showing up that day to learn, is making sure we're asking questions first and then offering information in response to that person's stated question. So not assuming that they need all this information, because they might already have it. They might be in this webinar today. They might have seen a whole bunch of stuff on dog body language and behavior. And I'm not going to know that unless I ask some questions about what they're seeing. So looking at what questions are we asking during the onboarding process that sort of flag certain resources needing to be offered to this person or certain information. So getting that person to ask for what they need versus telling them what they need. Because if you tell them what they need, they're probably going to say, no, you're wrong, you're not listening, which you're not.
Nancy Kate says, Devan, terrific presentation. Question, what equipment type collar, leash, drag leash, harness is advised for foster dogs? And also body language for prevention for escapes in the first few days when they're in foster.
Yeah, points of contact with the dog, right? Equipment use is going to be up to what your program has the resources for. So reaching out to your favorite brand of harness and asking if they can get some donations of harnesses that you like that fit this style of dog. I really like harnesses for foster dogs because of the multiple points of contact, physical contact. I don't have to reach for the collar, which can be stressful for some dogs. If I've got an additional point of contact on the back or lower on the back, that just gives me one more spot to grab so I'm not reaching for that dog's face. Putting a drag leash on, my favorite drag leashes for like high intensity, I guess, situation. My favorite drag leashes are like climbing rope, like old climbing rope that you can kind of make into a leash. A couple of different tutorials for that, and there's actually a business that does it. Anyway, it's really about what you've got the resources for. Generally speaking, I really like advocating for a harness because of the multiple points of contact there.
Terry asks, how would you get the everything sucks dog at the back of the kennel safely out of the kennel?
Yeah, time and patience and a lot of silly movements. I look ridiculous. So everybody's always surprised when they meet me for the first time. I'm 6'4", so I'm this tall dude that sometimes wears a hat and I've got a beard. So I look really scary in the shelter. So I've got a lot of dogs that are in the shelter like, I can't handle this and I don't want to interact with you. So I look pretty silly. I'll get down. So I'm kennel door. We've got protected contact, but I'm outside the kennel and I'm like, what are you doing? There's a kennel over here right now. What's going on? And looking for just those little like, okay, maybe you're not quite as scary as I thought you were. So changing your body language, getting down. If they're not eating today, continuing to offer some rewards for them, offer opportunities to opt in and opt out. I keep saying this, I need to be able to cite actual research. Maybe somebody can send me the research article that I can cite here, but I know that there's been research on if you allow opportunities to opt out of an interaction, you're going to get an animal that chooses more often than not to opt in. So really that dog that is overwhelmed in the back of the kennel, allowing them chances to say, no, I don't want to interact with you today, is encouraging them to tomorrow or maybe in an hour, them to come up and say, okay, thanks for not just grabbing me and pulling me out of my kennel. I think I can handle. I'm going to try to handle this. And meanwhile, I'm like wiggling my full body and be like, that's a good one. Come on, let's go.
Awesome. All right, Vera is saying, sometimes a dog starts off playful and happy, but something shifts mid-interaction and it's hard to notice until it's already happened. What's a good way to check in during the interaction so we don't miss smaller signals before they build up?
So important. That is a great question. And that's exactly the type of question that I would ask to a foster. This is a great conversation starter with that foster. Like, hey, how do you like to check in with your dog as you're interacting with them? Do you just do you walk away? Do you turn away? Do you, can we demonstrate what that looks like? Because I can demonstrate with whatever dog I'm working with. It's going to be up to that dog. But my version is going to look really, depending on the dog, it's going to look pretty silly sometimes. Where I'm like, turning away and I'm like, do you want to come over here? No, you don't want to come over. No, you're going to, okay, take a break over there, right? So it's sort of changing the, I don't know, changing how rigid we kind of think about this sometimes of like, you're gonna pet, stop, pet, stop. Changing that up to be a little bit more like, this is a playful thing to like, oh, okay, do you want a little bit more? Oh, okay, you do. The dog comes over and rubs up a little bit. So just changing it up to be a little bit more playful, I guess would be the general recommendation. But demonstrating that with the dog you're working with, because it wouldn't be appropriate for me to look at a dog if I'm working with this dog who is like really, really unsure about what I'm doing. I'm probably not going to go full dramatic with my body language. Be like, "Bah, come over here." And the dog's like, "No, now you definitely are as scary as I thought you were." Right? It's going to be more subtle. It's going to be more like, "Oh, buddy, come over here." Okay, that's very nice. Thank you so much. You got to really customize that to the dog in front of you. But stopping the interaction periodically and just checking for, is this dog opting in, is sort of the general rule there.
Lucia is asking, we have a dog that always grabs the leash. Even in the kennel, he's already getting overexcited. How do you handle this?
We can look at like a sturdy leash, like a chain leash or something, if as long as the dog's not going to grab that and injure themselves. If this is just like an issue of getting out of the kennel there, if they're not grabbing anything else, doing 2 leashes, so having one that's on the collar and one that's on a harness, or 1 slip leash or 2 slip leashes or whatever it is, having multiple leashes on there and allowing the multiple leashes to allow you to like drop one and step on the other one, and sort of trade back and forth to get to a safe point outside. I like 2 leashes or 2 handlers, or no leash and setting up some barricades so that I can just run the dog straight out to the yard from their kennel, having them in an environment where I can just release them out. Looking at, is there an option to take the leash out of this? And if there's not, maybe I do need a backup handler there, so we're each holding a leash and the dog can't grab both leashes at the same time. We want to make sure that those are both very skilled people that are doing that in a way that doesn't cause an increased negative association with that leash, because then we're just going to keep increasing that, the intensity of that behavior.
Michelle is asking, our facility does both sick foster for animals needing time to heal or get better, and healthy foster for animals that may have been in our shelter setting for longer. How does illness affect behavior and communication?
Oh my gosh, so much. So much. That's always my first question on a behavior consult is, have you talked to your vet about this? Anything, especially if we're talking about behavior that is escalating up to that, like, I'm not sure, or that I can't handle this. That dog that is threatening to bite, they may not have a handling sensitivity. They may not have a negative association with it. They'll get one if you keep handling a dog that is in pain. So pain plays a huge part in behavior. Always great to any behavior consult that I'm doing. Like I said, my first question is always, have you talked to your veterinarian about this? What did your veterinarian say about it? And if they say nothing, great. Dogs are really good at hiding pain as well. So there's always a part of me that's going to assume that it could be part of this, especially if it's like, you know, it was really unexpected that he did this the other day. I'm like, yeah, maybe he just wasn't feeling good that day. I'm a nightmare when I'm sick. I'm the person that is totally a big baby about being sick. I am the worst. I get it for those dogs.
Terry is asking, do you believe in virtual adoption events for fosters that so that more of them can participate online? It's scheduled and promoted so you can get people to attend and possibly get an interest in adopting a foster dog.
Oh, cool. I think I direct that question at you, Kelly, because I don't have a ton of experience with the virtual adoption events. I know virtual behavior consulting. I love virtual behavior consulting. Just providing people a different way to interact and engage is great on a dog training level. But I don't have any specific experience with virtual adoption events or foster events.
Yes, yeah, I would say absolutely believe in them. I have heard of organizations that have had really successful ones, especially I think a lot of them piloted during the pandemic and stuff. So I think it's a good idea, especially for those dogs that are harder to introduce as well, because you can be like, this is how the dog is acting with their foster right now in the comfort of their home, and this is how they'll be with you at, eventually. And so sometimes it's hard to introduce and that kind of thing. All right. You spoke a lot about changing the words or the way we say and explain things, which is great. I think that's happening a lot lately. Do you have any advice on how to tell a new volunteer that their body language and voice, fast, high-pitched, excited, is making the dog nervous and not sound like that you're telling them that they're doing it wrong? It's very delicate.
It is a very delicate conversation, and one that is easiest when you come from a place of curiosity again. Looking at like, hey, how are you doing on what do you think about this dog? Right? This dog that you've seen them interact with, and you've seen like this escalating sort of behavior from the dog, and you saw them respond with a really high pitched tone. It could be just that they don't know how to ask for that, or they don't feel comfortable asking, like, hey, what do I do here? And they've seen other people do this. Like it might be a volunteer that's seen me with dogs, because I do tend to have like this high pitched sort of silly thing going on. So engaging with them from a place of curiosity and asking them, how are you feeling about this dog? What do you do in these situations? Um, you know, Asking that question, ideally in that moment when you're seeing them interact with that dog, I think is super important to get their buy-in. Um, and sometimes just calling it out. Like I had it happen in a group class with a bunch of students that were very, very great dog handlers. I told them to like get excited, get happy, get like play with your dog for a second. And multiple of them started like squealing because they were like, "Ooh, I'm getting my dog amped up!" Like, yeah, 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 yeah. And I watched multiple dogs go, "Ooh, I don't know, ugh," like total, like a lot of them were sunk down a little bit. Like, I don't know about that. Um, so calling that out in that moment and saying, "Oh, I think the dogs were, not super into that. What can we do instead there?" So again, going back to that, come at it with curiosity versus, hey, I need to correct you on something. If it's a safety thing, let's have a safety conversation. Absolutely. Hey, I observed some unsafe behavior. Here's what it was. And we come at that from a very objective sort of place. But if we're looking to coach, we're looking to coach from a place of curiosity.
Cool. And then a couple of suggestions for leash biters. Wanted to kind of get your input. What about offering a toy for a leash biter?
Yes.
And
Functional alternative.
Christopher also says 2 leashes work well, and we've also used a chuck it ball thrower and loaded the scoop part with peanut butter. You can lead the dog all the way to the yard with them licking and eating the peanut butter. Never thought of
Perfect.
that. Very cool.
Love it. Yeah, a little trail of treats, or sometimes we've done like for dogs that are struggling with rekenneling, doing a trail of cat food or something really, really high value for those dogs. A little,
Mm.
walk down the hall and you're literally like plunk a thing of wet food down the hallway and the dog's sort of following the trail back there. Absolutely.
um, Carol is asking, how do we contact you for a virtual meeting about our own dog's behavior?
Oh my gosh, so many ways. What a great outro. So I've got Animal Welfare United, which is my for-profit that does like consulting work. We do education. We build courses online for shelters and rescues and other animal welfare organizations. But I've got my nonprofit, Free Dog Trainers, that you are welcome to schedule an appointment and make a totally free dog training consultation that is open to any of your fosters. As well, you're welcome to refer them to Free Dog Trainers. And if you want to get even more help, just reach out, send me an email. Devan at animalwelfareunited.com, Devan at freedogtrainers.org. Any of those, reach out to me however you can.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. One last question. Giuliani says, thank you for answering my question. And I agreed that the high arousal dogs might do well with foster. But for the moment, would you just let them be and use calming tools like a licky mat that they can get to at their pace, especially since the licking is supposed to be calming? Would alone time might be the best approach? And thanks again.
Yeah, I mean, there we start to get into a question about like my program's capacity. Like, can I provide quality of life for this dog while we look for outcome options for them, or temporary, alternative housing options for them? So there you're starting to get into a different conversation about our capacity for care and our capacity to house dogs for, who are completely overwhelmed. How long can we house them for without them being perpetually overwhelmed and stressed beyond reason? So I think there's that part of the conversation, unfortunately.
And then we had a couple of thank yous and just accolades.
Thank you.
But thank you so much, Devan, and thank you to everybody watching today's webcast. We got to all the questions, but if you have any more, we will be Devan will be answering them in Maddie's Pet Forum in the connection thread that we put in the chat. So feel free to post more questions there, and please take our 3-minute survey. We do it once a year to make sure that we've got the topics that you all are the most interested in. And we're doing this in a way that is helpful. So I really would appreciate your filling it out. The link will appear when you leave this webcast, so you can let us know your thoughts about Maddie's Monthly Foster Connection. And thank you all. We will see you next time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.